Hi, everybody. I think it's evening in Uzbekistan, so good evening to everybody. So it is my pleasure to be here and speaking with you guys, and hopefully we can have a discussion later on about um, how to succeed and how to reach your goals, I guess. And I will share like briefly my story, my journey about how I ended up where I am right now. And hopefully I can learn more from you, and hopefully it will be very interactive Q&A session. And also I would like to say that you guys are very, very lucky to have like these mentors like Alicia, Anya, and Natasha. It's a wonderful opportunity. I didn't have that when I was a high school student, and I think it's a very great resource for you guys. You should really take advantage of it. Because I had no idea when I came to US about the education system and everything related to the schools here. So like ask as many questions as you can. I think it's great that you guys part of this group. So I'm gonna share my screen. I'm gonna share some slides and tell a bit about myself. And maybe at the end I can learn a bit about you. Okay, you can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
So I'm Damir Musaev, and I was born and raised in Samarkand, Uzbekistan. And since I was in the middle school, I was, I guess, like a really a curious student. Especially, I was super interested in like subjects such as chemistry, physics, and math. I really loved them. I really enjoyed studying about all the things about molecules and electrons and everything. And this got me excited, and I wanted to explore the, I guess, the career in doing like research and finding out all the puzzles in the world to solve some big problems related, especially to human health and human disease. So I started, I guess this was like a special high school, like academic lyceum under Samarkand Medical School, where they really wanted us to learn more and more about chemistry and physics and biology. So here's me, like with my friends. We're all wearing a lab coat because the school was under medical school. And I don't know if you can find me. There's me in the back on the first row. So it was one of the fun times back in the high school where we were having fun pretending to be doctors and doing fun experiments and learning about beauty of the molecular world. And then I always wanted to go somewhere abroad. Like one of the options I was thinking either to go to England or United States. And then finally I decided to go to US, and I chose a state called Michigan. So in 2010, I moved to Michigan, and one of the reasons is that I have a family member in Michigan, and my parents were like, if you go to US, you're gonna go and live with your uncle, and your uncle is in Michigan. So I only applied to one school, Western Michigan University. And then my journey started at Western Michigan University. Here's me with my dad. When my dad visited me, and my parents, my mom also visited me during my graduation. And here I was studying biomedical sciences, learning more and more about biology, chemistry, physics, and actually doing some of the cool research on problems related to like cancer, and working with one of the great scientists in the US. And here's some of the pictures of me, like actually doing stuff at Western Michigan University. Here's me trying to get some DNA samples from the tubes and loading them into this special gel to eventually look under the camera into different parts of the DNA. So some of the history from times back in Michigan. And then in 2014, after graduation, I wanted to maybe explore my opportunities about doing research. So I relocated from Michigan to New York City. And then in 2015, from New York City, relocated to San Diego in California. And I was working in one of the research labs, so at the Rockefeller University and at the UCSD, one of the best places at doing biomedical research. And here on the right, you can see like my actual workplace, the bench with all of my like reagents, all of my tools, where I stand and do my experiments and trying to ask different questions and trying to solve different problems. And during this 3-year journey at UC San Diego and Rockefeller, one of my main goals was to really understand the human brain, like especially the disorders of human brain, like inborn disorders. And those could be ranging from epilepsy, like when the child has a seizure, or it could be like problems related to autism or intellectual disabilities. So we're really trying to understand the genetics behind inborn brain disorders. So it was one of the fun times in those two places. And then in 2017, I decided to start my journey as a PhD student. So when I'm like seriously considering research now. So I relocated from California back to the East Coast, and I started my PhD journey at Yale University. Here's me. This is my, I think, first months at Yale, being proud and starting my PhD at Yale School of Medicine. And here's, oops, it got cut out. Here's me with my friends and some of my professors at one of the conferences. Like we're like being a big fan of this professor, Jim Rothman. He's a professor here at Yale who is a Nobel Laureate, and we actually take classes with these people. Like we're so fortunate that we have one of the best people teaching us about science. And here's actually me looking under the microscope and doing some of the experiments, trying to understand the beauty in biology. And right now I work, sorry, it got out. I work with a group of talented people from all over the world, starting from Egypt to France to Mexico to China to Japan and Spain. And here in this lab, we're trying to understand the process related to the development of the embryos. So the question is, how do you get the complete, like a baby, from only one fertilized cell? We're trying to understand the biological and molecular mechanisms of the early stages of development, like the first couple of days. What does it really happen? And I think in the next slide, I'm going to share some of the fun like experiments we do and how it is to do experiments and science here. So here we're working in the lab with friends, trying to sequence a bunch of genomes of yeast and different cells. And in this video clip, it's a time lapse showing like how we move around and work together. Some people doing their research under the microscope, some people working at the bench. This is like a typical life of a scientist, like very engaging and very interactive, and you do your science and you have fun. Let's see. And I think now that was just a brief introduction about what I do and who I am, and we can maybe like start a discussion. First, I was planning maybe to briefly tell about the this program called the Yale Young Global Scholars. And then the second part of discussion, maybe you can tell me about yourself, about your goals, about your questions, and then hopefully we can answer those. So I guess first is a Yale Young Global Scholars program. So it's specifically designed for high school students from all over the world. And I think the cycle for this summer is closed, but you can apply next year if you can. And basically students from different parts of the world take this 2-week course where they learn from PhD students of Yale or some professors at Yale about different areas related to politics, law, economics, literature, philosophy, culture, so science and technology and engineering, or solving global challenges and global problems. And it's one of the great, I think, opportunities that you should take advantage and you should really consider applying. First is that simply you learn so much fun stuff from experts at Yale. And second, I think it's a good thing to have on your resume as well to boost up your chances to be admitted to your school of choice. And also you make friends from all over the world. They come from Brazil to Russia to Spain to like every continent of the world. And yeah, I think that was all what I wanted to show, and hopefully now you can all unmute yourself and we can talk and have a discussion.
Thank you. And to keep this, I guess, flowing and also organized, feel free to just raise your hand if you want to speak, so everyone's not speaking over each other. Or I don't know. Also, you can use the chat. But yeah, the discussion is open. Who wants to go first?
Well, good evening, everyone. And my first question, Mr. Damir, is, recently I found out that the tuition fee for Western Michigan University is about $20,000 per year, yes, including all the fees.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I could not find any financial aids for international students. How did you deal with that? How did you survive?
Yeah, so when I applied, I haven't checked recently what scholarships they're providing right now, but there was a scholarship called Heineke Scholarship for International Students. And during the time when I went to school, it was giving around $16,000 to students. So it was covering most of the tuition. But I haven't checked recently. I can get back to you if you want. But I was still paying like the rest out of pocket. I had to pay around 8,000 myself. But in the summer I was doing some internships and working different places at the school I was teaching. And I was getting paid and I was able to pay for my tuition myself.
And just to add to that, many private universities in America work with financial aid. So there's a separate financial aid office for international students, and most universities will meet your needs. So the most important thing is to get into the university, and then there are opportunities. I still worked on campus a lot to cover some additional expenses, but the room and board was already covered, including obviously tuition. So it's possible with most private universities.
Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, you should aim for private university. It's the same for Yale. Like they look like at your finances and then if they feel like you need a full scholarship, they give you everything. Because if they see that you're talented and you will make their school look great, they will do everything to get you here.
Did you work while you were studying? Did you work?
Yeah. Yeah. So as I said, yeah, when I was sophomore, so year 2, I was already working in the research lab, like doing research, doing basically what I do, like what I study, and I was getting paid for that. And also during the fall and spring semesters, I was helping to teach a class. I was like teaching introductory biology class, and for that also they were paying me. And in the summer, I was working in a private company that was also doing like biomedical research, and they were also paying me. So yes, definitely, if you try hard, you can find.
Wasn't that difficult as a student studying science? And the science, this stuff is, as people say, difficult to cope with, and especially if you're working anywhere else.
Yeah, but I think if you try to find the jobs related to, for example, science, which what I did, right? So I was studying science, I was teaching science. I was studying science and I was working in scientific company. So you kind of learn and apply, and also from the workplace, you also learn about your classes. So it's kind of win-win situation. But yeah, I did have some friends who had to work in different areas. So they had to manage their time wisely, but it's definitely possible. Yeah.
Yeah, good day. So I'm also going to choose medicine. I'm in biology and chemistry. So I want to ask some advices to study to be great at biology and chemistry.
The advice I would give like early on, what you can do is just for now, if you want to be proficient in like chemistry and biology, just have fun learning and like enjoy what you do. If it's something that someone is making, if it's something someone is pressuring you, it's not a great thing, but it has to be something you enjoy. So for example, for myself, I would read some books about, I was really interested in evolution, so books about evolution. I was reading about the history of science, because that usually helps you to really understand how things happen in the science world. Because we tend to learn things from the textbook, right? They tell you, oh, this is how things work. But I think if you learn the whole process, like the history of how scientists make a discovery, I think that is going to motivate you even more to pursue this field. I didn't do anything special for myself. For example, the first year for me, it was super easy. Like I felt like I didn't have to even study for chemistry and biology during my first year. I think because during my high schools, they were really, really focusing hard on chemistry and biology in Uzbekistan. So I just simply aced all the courses. So I'm really sure that if you're in the presidential schools, they're really trying to make sure that you're proficient in all the topics related to chemistry and biology. So it shouldn't be a problem. But I think once you get here, you really have to work hard to succeed and to yeah. So I think just for now, enjoy what you do and study hard, and you should also read science outside of what you learn in your school, like in textbooks.
A good part of the day. My name is Farbek, and I study at IT school named after me. So I'm 9th grader for now. So that's it. The question is, what do you think is a good time for school students to start preparing for international universities?
Well, as early as possible. I think if you set a goal for yourself, like if you say that I want to study this particular subject, or I want to be in this particular field. So for example, let's say you want to be like, let's say you want to learn economics and computer science. And if you like decided on this two topics, it's already time, I think, for you to start practicing. For example, if it's computer science, start practicing and working on some projects, independent projects. I don't know what kind of opportunities out there for high school students, but like volunteering in certain organizations that work on subjects or the stuff that you're interested in is a great chance for you to boost up your chances. And also, I think if you start exploring those fields early on, it will also give you confidence that this is what you want to pursue, this is what you want to do. Because a lot of times I've seen some students who start in college, and then all of a sudden in the middle they realize that it's not what they want to do. So I think starting like as early as possible, you should like explore the field you like. For example, in my case, related to medicine, I think I was fortunate enough to be surrounded by doctors and by professors, and some of them were my people close to me. So I was always going to like medical offices, helping out. I was going to labs, looking at, for example, cancer tissues from patients under the microscope back in Samarkand. And it was fun for me. I really liked it. And I realized that, yeah, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to pursue. So I think start doing those things early on and try to imagine yourself in that position. Would you be happy on that? And then if you are, just set the goal and stay focused and go for it.
Good evening, Mr. Damir.
Good evening.
My name is Gozal, and I'm studying presidential school in Samarkand, and I'm in 9th grade right now. I want to study in US, either aerospace engineering or IT. I haven't chosen it yet. My question is, tell me about your success habits and what's the one change I should make right now to help me to get closer to my success? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think for the success habit, one thing I would say, actually, I'm still learning that about myself, is when you start something, finish it. So when you say, oh, I want to, let's say, finish this book, or I want to, for example, start this project and have the end goal and get the result. A lot of people, what they tend to do is that they start and then they get distracted with many other things, and they never end up finishing that particular project that they have started, or a particular task. It could be anything small. And I think the habits that you guys all should develop, I think, is finish what you start. That's I think, if I had to say one thing, I would say that. And then if you finish, I think people will see that you're a reliable person. You can accomplish your goals, and there would be more trust. And I think you would be very successful.
I'm Ulugh from Nukos Presidential School, and I'm a 10th grader. And I'm not much interested. I wanted to know that. I want to know how was that? How easy was that to cover extra expenses studying abroad? Were you provided with some work opportunities just because you were from Uzbekistan by your university?
That's a good question. So for me, actually, I knew that I had to find a job because I had to cover some of my expenses. So I tried really hard, like applying to different places. It wasn't easy to get the job, but eventually I was lucky enough to get the job in this lab in my university because I knew my professor, and also I've shown myself previously to them that I'm a reliable person. I finish what I start, as I said, and then once they developed this feeling of trust, they were generous enough to provide me with a chance to work with them, and actually they were generous enough to pay me as well. And then once you make a first step, once you accomplish that first goal or first opportunity successfully, I think it opens up many other doors. So, and for me, like getting like a job number one and succeeding in that opened up so many other doors, so many other opportunities. So I think you shouldn't be too worried about finding a job. I think well, it depends on what's your field, but and also I would say that the year number one, for example, what I did is that I didn't work year one because I wanted to learn more and more about the education system and the schools, and I wanted to do well in classes. I started working after year one.
So the next question is, can you talk about the application process for applying American universities?
Application process?
Application process, yeah.
Yeah, I think it depends on the school, right? So it might be different from school to school, but in general, for me, it was super easy. I just had to fill out the online form and then send my transcript from the high school and send my IELTS score and write a personal statement. And that's it. It was quick and easy. Well, I guess the submission was quick and easy, but preparation still took some time, at least like 1 year or 2 years, I think. But then, yeah, you hear back from the school that you accept it. And I only applied to one school. That's why, yeah, I don't know too much about the differences between different school systems. But I think once you choose a school, and then I think you can worry about those issues.
Damir, do you have any advice for letters of recommendation? Did you ask your teachers? Maybe there's some advice about how to think about letters of recommendations because they're also really important for the bigger picture. That's
true. Yeah, I think, yeah, some schools do require, right? So for my schools, they didn't. But for Yale, for example, when I applied to Yale, they did require letters of recommendation. And I think for letters of recommendation, you should really think ahead of time. So because it will be someone who knows you well, someone who has worked with you closely, and someone who has actually witnessed how you work and your work ethics, how you think, about your goals and everything. So even like starting now, if you're involved in projects outside of the school, for example, if you're working with, I don't know, let's say if you're in art, for example, you're working with some artists, and you can get involved early on, and then if there's an eventual goal to get some advice as well as get recommendation letters. And also, I would say some people tend to make a mistake of, like, when they really need a recommendation letter, then they go and work with those particular people who would eventually write, but they don't really show commitment in their work. And then it would look like they're using those people to get recommendation letter, but those people will not write a good letter for you. So if you're thinking about getting a letter, really do some things that you're excited about, and really commit. And then once the person really witnesses that you're doing really well, that you're a super smart student, and they would be very happy to write you an amazing letter. And it can be someone from the school as well, so it doesn't necessarily have to be anyone outside. In my case, it was my own boss, and one of them was my professor. The third one was also another person I worked with, and I worked with them at least for 3 years, and they knew how I work, what I do, and what's my goal. I have interacted them in the work and outside of the work as well. So I think that's really crucial to develop those interactions and those relationships early on.
My question is some kind of personal, and like, you know, many famous people sleep less than we do, and I want to ask, for how many hours do you sleep, and how actually is it important to sleep like 5 hours a day, and how you got used to?
I actually sleep from 8 to 10 hours. I love to sleep. It's one of my hobbies. Sleeping is important because you need some rest in order to make sure that your brain is thinking clearly, and that you're not tiring yourself. Because a lot of times, I think, a lot of times what some people do is they deprive themselves from sleep, and eventually they tend to have some problems with their health, and this is not good. And also for myself, for example, I have the rule that there has to be at least one day in a week where I don't think about the science, where I don't think about my work. I go to the beach, I go to see my friends, we hang out, I go to traveling. So I think, I think it's very important to have some rest. Don't put too much pressure on yourself.
Mr. Damir, so your advice is to sleep for how many hours a day?
Well, I think it's different from people to people, right? As long as you feel rested. I have
like as a scientist or a doctor, like.
No, actually recently we discovered that the sleep is something genetic, that some people get like well rested even after like 4 hours. So for some people it's enough to sleep 4 hours, but some people need actually 9 hours. So there's no like a rule of thumb that if you sleep for 8 hours you're perfect. So it all depends on individual person. Just don't put an alarm. I don't put an alarm for myself. I just wake up naturally.
By the way, I didn't introduce myself. Okay, my name is Farbek. I am studying at the Presidential School in Tashkent, currently 10th grade.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is that how the attitude of the government of US is changing about international students these days, especially?
In relationship to international students?
Yes, the government's relationship attitude towards international students.
Well, I don't think they have made like a strong policies yet, so it's still not decided, but there have been some promise from the current presidential administration that if you are, for example, let's say in science, if you are in PhD, they wouldn't put any limits of how long you can stay in the US, because right now it's only like 3 years, I think. As a scientist you can work, and then you have to think about the work visa and everything. But what the current government is proposing, that they will remove those limits. So they're trying to make sure that they keep talented people in the United States. So I think there's a promise. It's hopefully going to get better. So the attitude is actually shifting towards something positive.
I asked this question because recently from the other students who are applying as well, like they say the getting visa for US is becoming more and more difficult. And this is maybe because of the increasing number of people who wants to go there. So is it somehow related to that, or?
Could be, because I think some people abuse the system, right? They apply to like fake universities, or like they apply, they're there just to get to US and then they stay as illegal immigrants. But I think it all depends on the interview process. Like if you really show that you're committed, if you really show that you're applying to like one of the best schools, that you are and you show like a record of that you have done like so well in school as well, I think you have a good chance to get the visa. For example, for me, I was challenged as well. Like I went to a conference in Germany like 2 years ago, and I had to renew my visa, but I had to renew it in Germany, and they interviewed me. They asked me all the science questions. They wanted to test me if I'm a scientist. They just wanted to make sure that I'm really going to US to pursue PhD, and I think there have been some instances of like mistrust. So if you get admitted to good school, if you pass through the interview proper in a, I think, easy way, I think you'll get the visa.
And during the process of getting a visa, the consuls will ask you about the budget, which is enough for 4 years, yes, or should be just enough for 1 year.
Yeah, they ask you, is it enough for 4 years? So you have to have explanation. For me, I had to come up with an explanation, and it was related to the business my granddad owned. So I said, this is how much he's making, and he's going to support me with all the money, and his business is making enough for me to support myself for 4 years. But actually my grandpa didn't pay anything for me, so I paid everything myself when I came to US, because I was working in the summer, working during the fall and spring. So yeah, if you can provide something that is trustworthy.
I wanna ask Mr. Damir, what's your motivation and how you push yourself through your worst times?
That's a good question. So for me, I think one of the big things that keeps me going forward is I want to make an impact in someone's life. So that could be like maybe by solving a problem in certain like healthcare, or coming up with new discoveries to cure certain disorders. And that's my like I guess the big picture goal. As I said, like small accomplishments, like once you accomplish something and you see the results that you're making, I think that's another thing that keeps me going. And for example, one of the things that one of the examples I can tell. So when I was working at the Rockefeller University and UC San Diego, we were working with children that from all over the world, from like Pakistan, Turkey, Israel, India, and they had like a brain disease. And in one of the cases, like the doctors didn't know what was wrong with a child. The child had epilepsy. The child was like shaking all the time. The child had seizures. And we did some genetic tests and everything. We found out that there was a mutation, that one of the genes in the brain was not working properly, and it was one of the enzymes related to breaking down one of the one type of food, like certain proteins in the meat. So once we discovered that, we told the parents, oh, like maybe you should change the diet of the child, because the child cannot process certain meals, and that's why the meal is going to brain and it's causing seizures, so it's becoming toxic. And once the child has changed the diet, the child was free of seizure forever. You didn't even have to give any medicine or anything. You just tell them like what to do in the right way and how to manage their lifestyle, and now they're cured. So I think some of those kind of things, when you see like real impact that you're making in someone's life, like really keeps you going, and hoping to make more impacts in the future. So trying to so for example, I myself right now I work with this molecules called mRNAs. I don't know if you guys heard of mRNA vaccines, like from Pfizer and Moderna, all the vaccines for coronavirus. So I study how the message is, which is inside of those vaccines, work. So with the goal to better understand it and maybe try to apply it to many other disorders unrelated to coronavirus.
Maybe then I'll just ask. So she says, good evening. I'm Khalil Mansoura from Nukus, 9th grade. I'm interested in biology and chemistry, and I plan to study molecular and cellular biology in the future. I'd like to know more about your journey of choosing the field of biology and chemistry that you wanted to focus on. So I guess maybe a bit more rewinding back to your high school days, like what were some stories or like some turning points that got you to realize that this is it, this is the thing you want to dedicate your life to?
Back in high school and I was interested in biology and chemistry and physics, but I was still focusing on medicine. So I wanted to become like a medical doctor instead. But when I arrived to United States, I guess I was very lucky enough to work with like one of the great scientists doing like research and solving problems related to, as I said, like for example, brain disease and the cancer, and also, and I really enjoyed it. And then I also tried to explore medicine here. I actually went to hospitals and asked some doctors, like cardiologists, as an example. I asked them if I can like shadow them, if I can work along with them, and to see if I would enjoy it. And I worked with the medical doctors for like 2 weeks, and I witnessed so many instances where the doctors did not know what was wrong with the patient, and they did not know how to manage the patient. And in some of the instances, actually, people died. And I was so frustrated that we still don't have a cure to many disorders, and we still don't understand why we don't have a cure. So I felt like there's a huge need for biomedical research, a huge need to understand the fundamental basics in healthcare and the way the living organisms function and survive, to be able basically to tell the doctors how to manage, how to treat the patients. Yeah, that was I think one of the turning moments for me during, I think, second or third year in college, that I felt like I would make a bigger impact by telling the doctors what to do.
This is really important, and I think it's really cool that you actually explored your interests from multiple dimensions, right? You actually went to hospitals, you talked to people who are out there doing great things, and you actually dived into that before saying, no, I want to do research and I want to do something a bit more like pure science. And this is really important for all of you guys, because even if today you're convinced that you want to be a scientist, don't discount the other pathways. That's why your mind maps are supposed to be going in multiple directions. And hopefully today you got some, inspiration, you got some ideas for how your life can evolve, and you can plot all of this on your mind maps. So you can see all of your kind of interests and ideas, things you want to dedicate your life to, all on the same piece of paper, or if you're using an app for that, then on your screen. And yeah, just take that home tonight, sleep on it, continue working on your mind maps, and I really look forward to seeing them next week. Let's say big thanks to our guest speaker, and we can wrap up here. Do you have any final remarks that you want to close out with, Damir?
No, yeah, I wanted just to say that it was a pleasure for me to chat with you guys. I see that everyone is so motivated and everyone is exploring their passions. So I think keep pursuing your passions and stay focused and finish what you start. And I think you will do great things. You will solve so many problems in the world, and you will be the leaders of the world, hopefully one day.